All right, big news out of the sports world tonight. The PGA Tour announced a merger with the rival Live Golf Tour, which is funded by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, Live Golf has been luring some of the world's best golfers away from the PGA with extremely lucrative contracts. News of that merger came to a surprise to many, but not former President Donald Trump. He actually predicted that this would happen about 11 months ago. And for his part, President Biden had no comment on the deal other than a joke about joining the PGA Tour himself. Now, I would tell Joe you might want to keep your day job because you like to sleep a lot. I don't really want that either. But anyway, amid Biden's mental and physical struggles, there are now growing calls for him to step aside. Our friend Stephen A. Smith, host of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast, of which I have been a guest, is the latest to call for change at the White House. He joins us right now. Sir, how are you? I'll tell you what
What's going
most
on, man?
outrageous.
It's nice to see you. You got a nice haircut, too.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I appreciate you're noticing. I will say this. When I read somebody else, a new hire at ESPN, is being paid more than you, no. No. You are the star at ESPN. You get paid more, period.
I'm not concerned.
What's that?
I've been treated very well, and when my time will come again, I'll be treated very well again. I am not concerned. Don't worry about me. Everything's
Just
good.
know where I stand. I want you to know I'm on your side. I think you should be the highest paid. Just saying. All right, you don't want Biden.
Well. I was at the time, and I will be again.
You will. That's true. I have no doubt. I know you will. All right. So Biden's too old, too checked out. Get it. But my staff tells me you're friends with Chris Christie. You don't want him for president, do you?
I'd rather have him for president than Donald Trump. I'll be the first to admit that. I understand that he's got a gladiatorial attitude and he's ready to combat. We know what he did to Marco Rubio in 2016 during the primaries and all of that stuff. We get all of that. I think that he's a guy that is not walking around and preaching about, rigged elections and all of this other stuff. He's about moving the country forward. I don't know whether he'll win or not. I know it's a long shot. I understand that Donald Trump's got him beat by a mile at this particular moment in time, but in the same breath, I don't think he's going to be pushed around by the former president. And I think that Chris Christie knows what he's talking about. He's highly intelligent. He's highly accomplished.
The guy,
now,
if he's
whether
so
or not that's going to win him, I don't know. But we'll see.
Why did he leave office with a 14% approval rating? We all remember Bridgegate, although that ended up being somewhat squishy and overruled in an appeal. But then there he is, sitting on a beach that he closed himself. One rule for him, one rule for the rest of the people in New Jersey.
Well, wait a minute.
Why?
Well, first of all, that's something that I'm supposed to be bringing up. I'm surprised you're bringing that up about a conservative and a Republican candidate. Way to go for you, Sean. But at the end of the day, I'm not sitting up here trying to campaign for Chris Christie or anything. Listen, the bottom line is he's certainly not a liberal. The bottom line is this. When you look at him, and I think that, he's competent, and more importantly, he's going to be talking about issues as opposed to having us distracted with a whole bunch of nonsense that we don't need to be distracted with as a country. That's all I'm saying. Now, whether he wins, and I know it's a long shot. I know it's a very long shot, but I tell you this much, I'd vote for him before I'd vote for any of the Democratic candidates that I've seen. But that's not the same when it comes to DeSantis or Trump. But when it comes to him, I know that's what position I take. I'm a registered independent. You understand?
Right,
and that's what I would take. That's how I feel about it.
Why is it you see it, I see it, the world sees it? That is, Joe Biden is, weak, frail, and cognitively he's out to lunch. Why can't Democrats just admit that simple truth?
Well, because he's the candidate, number one, that they deem capable of beating Donald Trump, which he's already proven, whether people want to admit that or not. That's number one. Number two, and more importantly, I'm not going to sit up there and label our president in those derogatory fashions. What I will say is this. I'm not engaging in ageism.
I'm not asking for derogatory
like
comments.
Do you
think he's a cognitive mess?
I didn't say you were.
Do you think he's a cognitive mess?
I'm not going to say he's a cognitive. I'm not going there. What I can say to you is that I think there's an abundance of people who could do better. And I hate the fact that in the year 2023 that we have a bunch of liberal candidates out there that thinking he's the guy. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you?
For being straightforward, blunt, truthful, and honest. And you can't speak the obvious that Joe Biden's a cognitive mess. Of course he's a cognitive mess.
I'm not going to label, I'm not going to label it that way, Sean. What I'm going to tell you is this. I'm looking at him, and I don't like what I see. I'm not impressed with what I've seen. I've been very concerned with what I've seen. And the fact that he's going to be 82 years of age at election time, if he were to win an election, and he'd be in the White House until he's 86 years old, I think in the year 2023, it is utterly embarrassing that the liberal side has him as their best candidate. What does it say about you when that is the best candidate that you can give the left? That is ridiculous. That's not a knock against Joe Biden, more so than it's an indictment against the Democratic Party.
It took a little push. Now I got Stephen A. coming out of his shell. I was waiting for that. All right, now let me move on to Live Golf. I'm going to tell you something, and I don't like to speak, in generalities, but broadly speaking, as a country, I have found the Saudis to be dishonest and duplicitous, and I find them to be a fair weather friend of America. And when it's in their best interest to align with China, as they're currently doing, they do it. I don't like this at all. I think the PGA gave in because they thought they were going to lose, and there was too much money on the table. Thoughts?
Well, that's exactly what happened. The fact of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, they came to their senses. And even though Jay Monahan, the PGA commissioner, said one thing months ago and completely reversed course now, I'm certainly going to applaud him for it, as I did this morning on First Take on ESPN. Here's the reality of the situation. The United States government does business with Saudi Arabia for billions of dollars. It was a $9 billion surplus for the government in 2019. They did over $138 billion in sales and goods with Saudi Arabia in the year 2019. The reality is that if the government of the United States can do business with Saudi Arabia, what on earth is wrong with individual golfers doing business with Saudi Arabia? We've got to be consistent as a nation, which is one of the things that I repeatedly argue with you about all the time, about consistency in terms of our society. If you have a problem with golfers, then have a problem with our government. If you don't have a problem with our government doing business, what on earth are you bothering golfers for? Whether it's Phil Mickelson, it's Brooks Koepka, it's Dustin Johnson, whomever. They weren't being treated right by the PGA. They want an alternative.
What happened in World War II? Didn't the U.S. align for a time with the former Soviet Union to beat Nazi Germany? That was an alliance of convenience. We still didn't like each other. I mean, if Patton had his way, he would have gone right straight into the Soviet Union at that time. But we only got a second. I got to roll.
Can I retort? Can I retort to that?
Real quick.
Let me throw this at you. What happened to the American way in capitalism? The fact of the matter is the PGA was a monopoly. Live Golf comes along because the PGA presumably wasn't treating the golfers right. They made that case. Live Golf comes along. They throw $2 billion into the pot, and all of a sudden the PGA comes to a senses and they collaborate with Live Golf. Exactly.
I'm more angry at our country. We have more energy resources than they do. And we're stupid enough we don't produce it domestically, and we're making them rich, and we're now making Venezuela rich. Stephen A. Smith should be the highest paid ESPN commentator by far. Thank you, Stephen A.